Hi, welcome to Hidden Mysterious Facts. Our today's topic is an event that took place at the end of Second World War. Until today, it is considered as the most mysterious conspiracy in the history of the mankind. And before starting our topic, kindly like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell notification as hard as you can. At the end of Second World War, on the 18th of August, 1945, a Japanese bomber plane disembarked from Manchurian Peninsula, China, towards Taiwan. And just before hitting the airport, it crashed near Tohoku, present-day Taipei in Taiwan. According to the reports, the flight was carrying a group of about 13 persons, including 2 pilots and 4 other Japanese military staff, accompanying a Japanese General Shide. Reports came in saying that both the pilots and the general has lost their lives instantly. And apart from the military staff, there was another person who had boarded the flight that day, along with Japanese soldiers, and had got third-degree burns and died a few moments later. The flight crashed. And that person was none other than Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash at that time was one of the most wanted criminals for Britishers, as he was the real hero for Indians, who on his own had gathered all the British Indian soldiers who were prisoners of war in Europe and Japan and turned them against British Army and made the Britishers to leave India eventually after 200 years. Not just that, he was the person who had ties with none other than Adolf Hitler and the Japanese generals, who were at that time were the biggest enemies of Britishers and Americans. After the incident, the survivors and the Japanese cremated the body of Subhash and put the ashes in a jar and made a memorial where they kept the jar in a Buddhist temple named Renkoji in Tokyo that still exists today. As soon as the news broke out, the whole India mourned. They couldn't believe their hero was no more. They wanted him to be their first prime minister, as he was so patriotic and so intelligent that being a well-qualified and being posted at a very high-ranked civil services officer of British India earlier, he quit the job and stood against Britishers to get India free. He also became the president of Indian National Congress. That, too, he left, as he didn't like the hypocrisy of the Congress and the ideology of Gandhi. 2 years after the incident, India got its independence and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru became the first prime of the independent India. As time went by, in early 1986, a news broke out again that shook the nation once again. The news was about the death of a saint who had no name, and thus they named it Gumnami Baba, saint with no name, and had died few months earlier in September 1985 in Ayodhya, India. Strange. How could a nation be so concerned about the death of an old saint who used to live a life of isolation and never used to interact with many people commonly? He never used to live at same place for long time and lived a yogi life. But after his death, few letters and belongings were found which indicated his connections with high authorities, or should say highest authorities in India, and sources indicated that the Baba was well connected to the national intelligence as well as the politics in India and overseas. In fact, his belongings, which never seemed to be something that a saint or yogi could possess at that time. His belongings included expensive cigars, Rolex watch, imported spectacles, an expensive umbrella, etc., that made him not likely what he appeared to be, as he had spent most of his life in isolation and disappearance. But later in his life, when he was getting old, he started spending time with few of the youngsters and few others who were living in villages and were not well aware about what's going on in the country or the world. He used to motivate them and talk to them about what's going on in the world. He used to tell them tales of how he has traveled the world and been to China, Russia, and Europe so many times. But very few or none would believe him, as he never appeared to be such kind of person. Once he even told them who used to visit him about how he knew von Nguyen Giap, the Vietnamese general during Vietnamese War, and how he was involved in the war. He told them that Russians had sent him in Vietnam to help Giap to analyze the situation and to avoid losing the war against America. He also told that he was the one who actually had suggested to flood South Vietnam with free cocaine to make their soldiers and their allies addict to it, so that they won't think straight and would give General Giap an upper hand. But at that time, people used to think that he just telling the tales for amusement and fun, and they never took him that seriously, but at the same time they were stunned by his knowledge and the way he used to narrate them as if it was all true. Once a youngster even got stunned when he found the Intelligence Bureau head visiting the Baba personally. But the most mysterious thing was, the Baba had no name. Once his landlord even tried to take him to the court so that he could know his name, but left in vain. Why the Baba never wanted a name, and more interestingly, why everyone around him wanted to know his name, that he never told till his last breath. The reason lies in his early days while living in a village in Uttar Pradesh near India, Nepal border. He had to go out to get his spectacles fixed, and the shopkeeper who fixed his spectacles asked him to try them on, and as soon as he wore the glasses, the shopkeeper who was looking at him just got stunned and asked, "Are you Netaji?" Subhash Chandra Bose was infamously known as Netaji in India. As soon as he asked the Baba that question that he himself couldn't believe, Baba paid him for services, and without answering any other questions, he just left. The shopkeeper started following the Baba very cautiously and gradually, and followed him to his house, unaware of the fact that the Baba already knew he is being followed, so as soon as the shopkeeper entered his house, the Baba was standing right behind a curtain, which in those days was used as a partition in bigger rooms, and the Baba said something to the shopkeeper and asked him to leave. The shopkeeper couldn't believe what he saw, and he started talking about it to the people who then started gathering outside the house Baba was renting. But lesser than knew the Baba was already gone. The face of Baba was so similar to the Baba that in modern time people would definitely presume him as Subhash. But those days there were no phones or clear pictures, and TV were not commonly available that time, so even if he was Subhash, very few can figure it out. Now, back in 1945, after the plane crash, nobody from India saw the dead body, but only a couple of his partners who were freedom fighters like him, as well as the Japanese. Most of the Indians never believed of him being dead, as he had faked his death previously for few times. Not in the same way, but to dodge the Britishers. And everyone was kind of confused and sad. As this time it didn't seem that fake because Japanese claimed to have his ashes, and his partners also said the same. On top of that, the Britishers who were after him tried their best to confirm the validity of the claim of his death. They even interrogated the survivors, both Indians and Japanese. A commission was also set up by the government to inquire about the crash, and it was confirmed true. There were 2 more commissions set up for the inquiry and next couple of decades later by the government, with the same results. But still, the shopkeeper thought the Baba of being Subhash is because what Baba had told him. That day he followed him to his home, the Baba had said, "Yes, the answer is yes. And I believe that you would not reveal the secret of my whereabouts to no one, as it would not be good for the people of this nation," and asked him to leave. But people used to love Subhash for what he had done for the country, so as soon as he told the people, everyone started getting to his house until he was gone. There was also a famous Indian politician who had claimed to have seen Subhash at an airport in France. After all these inquiries and commissions, people still believed that he was alive and active. The death of Baba was full of mystery and confusion, as people thought, what if he really was Subhash? And all this time they were unaware of it, and if he was alive, then why he didn't just show up? He could have become the top minister of the country. Why hiding after so many years after the war? And the mystery was uncovered 35 years later, in year 2019, after the death of the Baba, by a passionate journalist who dug deeper into the commission reports and Baba's life, and what he found was strange. According to the research, the belongings retrieved from the Baba were same that Subhash possessed. In fact, The expensive umbrella was identified by Subhash's niece, belonged to her grandfather, that is Subhash's father, and all the commission reports were just a cover-up to put the rumors aside. And the Japanese soldiers and other survivors of the crash, when interrogated, confirmed his death, but their statements contradicted. According to the last commission report in 1970, there was no plane crash at all. But the government was still trying to cover it up. Why? Because Subhash wanted it. Subhash already knew that after the war, if Germany loses, he would be treated as war criminal and shall be punished, but as he was a national hero, Indians would never want him to get punished and would try to stop it at any cost, and this cost would be way too much for a newly independent India to pay. As in that case, United Nations may impose sanctions on India, which will make life of people even worse. He also didn't contact anyone in family for their safety, not even his wife, and secretly sacrificed all his life for the nation. Thanks for listening and have a good time.